Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest, and this is the next scenario in the Wars of the World series. And this is Texas independence, and it's a very, very small scenario, as you can see. That's this is the entire setup, that and that right there. So very small scenario, very quick. It's only 2 turns, and this is more of an optional scenario because historically the war only lasted about, if you want to call it a war, but it only lasted about 6 months. So very short. It's only 2 turns, and yeah, because it's so short, and you only get 2 chances at doing anything. So this is less about skill and more about just luck of the dice. So an optional scenario can be skipped if you want to. It does and can matter in the next scenario. The Mexican-American War. If Texas is still part of Mexico, the likelihood of America going to war with Mexico is very slim, because that war started over America annexing Texas, but we'll get more into that in that actual scenario. So, start off with a little background. The Texas independence came to be because in what would become Texas and some of the provinces over in Western America, these quote-unquote northern provinces of Mexico, are having really hard times with Native American raids. I believe primarily the Comanche, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But regardless, Native American tribes were raiding the northern provinces of Mexico pretty much with impunity. The Mexican military is unable to counter or affect these raids in any way, and after several years of this, it caused the northern provinces of Mexico to be almost depopulated of, well, at least of Mexicans. And so Santa Anna, scratch that, sorry, he wasn't dictator yet. So the Mexican government, as a ploy to try to bring in people and / push out the Native Americans, they opened their borders to free immigration, and particularly Americans, and gave them enticing land deals. Basically, if Americans would come settle Texas and the northern territories, the Mexican government would grant them generous land permits. And this caused a number of Americans to jump at the chance, because they're getting land for practically nothing. And so a number of Americans, which would become to be known as Texians, came down to settle the northern provinces, specifically Texas, or what would become known as Texas. The part that the Mexican government didn't foresee is they imagined a trickle of Americans to kind of eventually push out the Native Americans, but what actually happened was it was an avalanche of Americans came down to settle, and within a number of years, the American settlers outnumbered the quote-unquote local Mexican population by several magnitudes. And I want to say that like the ratio is something like 30-some thousand Americans settled to like just under 3,000 actual local Mexicans. So so this very lopsided population ratio alarmed the Mexican government, and so the Mexican government shut down immigration, which angered the Texians, now known Texians, pretty greatly, because it cut them off from families. Families couldn't visit, they couldn't go to family, they couldn't visit theirs. Number of different reasons that pissed off the Texians. So what was the, but that didn't cause the revolt, rebellion, revolution, whatever you want to call it. The impetus of that, the straw that broke the camel's back was Santa Anna took power, basically created a military dictatorship and dissolved the Constitution, because Mexico was a democracy at the time. Now when I say Constitution, it wasn't as in the same vein as the American Constitution. It wasn't that elaborate or that in that light or tone, but it was a constitution of sorts. It did guarantee some, certain rights, or certain versions of what the American Constitution was. So when Santa Anna overthrew, more or less, the democratic government, became a military dictator and dissolved the Constitution, that was kind of the last straw for the Texians. These Texians being Americans, so you could understand why they would be alarmed slash very angry at a constitution being thrown out. The Constitution is the bedrock of the American, country and its people. So these Texians, basically transplanted Americans, their Constitution gets thrown out, and you can understand why they went up in arms. And so they revolted in 1835, sorry, and started this whole shebang. So, as it started, the Texians didn't have an actual standing army. There was volunteer. There were volunteers. Very much militia, not a trained standing army. Santa Anna did have a professional, quote-unquote, professional army. Depending on who you're comparing that to, that term could be used rather loosely. But anyways, Santa Anna did have a quote-unquote semi-professional army, as donated by that right there, and it did outnumber the Texan rebels by a pretty sizable amount. But the Texians did have some things working for them, as when the Texians revolted, they weren't the only ones revolting. Mexico was going through a slew of revolts all over Mexico, so that diluted Mexican strength, across the country, trying to put down these various revolts. Also, Santa Anna, his government and his general staff was very corrupt, so supplies generally didn't get to the troops because the generals would hoard supplies, actually withhold troops' paychecks and pocket it themselves, and so the troops never had enough supplies, never had enough food, and so that degraded their order of battle quite significantly. The Mexican army wasn't very well motivated, whereas the Texans very much were. And so also the Texans were receiving aid from America, mostly in the form of volunteers. Depending on what source you look at, some will say the Texans were receiving massive help from the U.S. in terms of volunteers. Other sources say it was very little. So I generally go with the idea that between two extremes, it's probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. So all the inner turmoil in Mexico won't be represented in this. The scenario is too short, and at a strategic level game, it's really hard to represent that, especially in a scenario that's so short. I mean, this thing only lasted 6 months, so that won't be represented. The American aid for Texas, that will be implemented, and how that will work gameplay wise is each turn Texas rolls one dice, and whatever the die result is divided by half, rounded down, and that's how many infantry Texas gets from America. So if it rolls a 1, half of 1 is 0.5, rounded down to 0. So if it rolls a 0, it won't get anything. rolls a 2, half a 2 is 1, rounded down is 1, so they get a 1, and so on and so forth all the way up to 6. Or sorry, all the way up to 3. So that's how American aid will be represented. I'm not going to bother with going over strategy because there really isn't any. In 2 turns, there's not much you can do strategy-wise. It's just Texas just has to hold on. Has to survive 2 turns. Mexico just has to hit it with everything it has, and it's just going to be luck of the dice. That's why this is going to be an optional thing, because there's no real strategy involved in it. It's just literally luck of the dice, and a quick little way to do a what if for the next scenario. What if Texas is still part of Mexico? How's that change stuff? But so other than that, I guess we'll just get into it. Ruth unfortunately isn't able to play, so unfortunately we'll not have a live playthrough. I'll just do the usual format of play a round, do an end of round recap, and then go on to the next turn. So with that, I shall stop here and play the first turn, 1853 of the Texas Revolution. See you then. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest, and this is the first half of the 1853 turn of the Texas Revolution. And, okay, so Texas goes first and has 3 IPP to work with. It used 2 to buy a militia, saved the $1, so the next turn it can buy 2 militia. And then on its American aid roll, rolled really well, and rolled a 5, so that's 2.5 rounded down, so that's 2, so we got 2 infantry from America, designated by that. So the Texas rebels ended their turn with 2 militia and 2 infantry, and so, or Texas rebels, I'm sorry, I think I said Mexican rebels. So then Mexico attacked with everything it had, and Mexico got 2 hits, so very fortunate that the Texians rolled so well on their American aid, because that would have wiped the Texians out, and that would have been game over right then and there if it didn't get that American help. Texians responded by getting 1 hit themselves, so 2 on 1, and that was the turn. Like I said, this scenario is going to be really quick. So that's what it's sitting at. And Mexico has 11 IPP, so it bought 1 of everything to reinforce for its next attack, and that's the end of the turn. And so we'll come back with the second half of 1853 and the last turn of the scenario, and we'll see if there will be we'll see if Texas will gain its independence, or if Texas will still be part of Mexico. So we'll see you then. And when I say 1853, I actually mean 1835. I'm an idiot, and I'm dyslexic, so 1835, not 1853. Okay, we'll be back. And the next turn is actually 1836, because this started, the revolution started September 35 and ended spring 36. Okay, now that I got my idiotic dates straightened out, we'll come back with the 1836 turn and the last turn. See you then. Hello everybody, we're back with the spring 1836 of the Texas Revolution, or Texas Independence, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, we will have a Texas. With that money they saved up, they were able to buy 2 militia, and then they rolled really good again on their American aid, got a 5, so they got 2 more infantry from America. Brought their forces up to 4, and then Mexico attacked with all that, and here are the dice results. Mexico got 2 hits, Texians got 1, not enough to, whoa, come on, focus camera, not enough to wipe out the rebels, and like I said, it's only two turns on because it only lasts 6 months, so we will have a Texas moving forward into the next scenario. Well, actually, next scenario it'll be part of America because Texas gets annexed. But anyways, we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it. So historically, what happened and why Texas won is the leader of the Texas rebel army, a person by the name of Houston. I believe I have that right. If I have gotten that wrong, all you Texans out there, please forgive me, but I believe it was Houston. Knowing his army wasn't any match for the main Mexican army led by Santa Anna, he avoided battle with Santa Anna and continuously retreated from Santa Anna, and Santa Anna's army also outnumbered the Texians by a decent amount. So after several weeks / month of continually avoiding battle with Santa Anna in aggravation / annoyance / overconfidence, he split his army into 3 columns, and then he sent them off in different directions to the extent that each column lost contact with the other, which meant they could not mutually support each other. When Houston found this out, he immediately ordered his army to stop retreating, did an about-face, and confronted Santa Anna. And Houston also knew which column Santa Anna was, in. So when Houston learned that Santa Anna had split his army into 3 columns and figured out which column he was in, Houston stopped retreating, ordered an about-face, and immediately attacked the column that had Santa Anna in, caught Santa Anna and the Mexican army by surprise, and Houston threw his entire army against roughly only a third of the Mexican army, which gave him local numerical superiority, or at least equivalent numbers, and with the element of surprise, it gave him the local tactical advantage. Houston not only managed to defeat the Mexican column, but actually managed to capture Santa Anna himself. And with Houston having Santa Anna in chains, Houston and the provisional Texas government managed to convince Santa Anna to sign a peace treaty and recognize Texas independence. And I say convince in quotation marks. So, with that weird, quirky, and hell of a lot of luck chain of events, we now have a independent Republic of Texas. For now. Historically, pretty much immediately after this, Texas petitions the United States to be annexed, and the United States actually turns them down for 10 years. 10 years later, America finally accepts Texas annexation, and that's for a variety of reasons. Very basic was the reason why America turns them down at first. Very basic was At the time, it felt imperialistic, and America was trying to avoid that whole imperialism thing, and Santa Anna may have signed a quote-unquote treaty recognizing Texas independence, but as anyone can imagine, that was signed under duress, and the other heads of state back in Mexico City didn't recognize the signing because they claimed it was signed under duress and it was therefore not a legal treaty. So because of that, America was hesitant to annex Texas because it wasn't officially, because Mexico hadn't officially recognized its independence, nor had any other country. So if America had accepted Texas's petition, America could very well have accepted to annex a territory that still technically quasi belonged to Mexico and would therefore cause a war, and America really didn't want a war right now. So for the next 10 years, America perpetually turned down Texas requests for annexation. But as history buffs know, in the 1840s that all changed very dramatically. America did accept Texas independence. Mexico still thought Texas as part of their provinces, and next thing we know, we got the Texas-American War, which is consequently the next scenario. So that was it for the scenario. Like I said, really quick, 2 turns. Not a whole lot of strategy involved. It's just luck of the dice. Texas got 2 really good American aid rolls. That pretty much won it for them, and so. After the 3 previous colossal scenarios, this is kind of a relief to have something so small, so simple, so quick. So we will retool and come back with the Mexican-American War. And we'll see you then.
Hey, thanks for watching Axis and Allies players. Don't forget to hit a squat on that like button. If you'd like to see more videos just like this, go ahead and click on our subscribe button. You can view all of our other videos on our playlists right here on Viper and Nato, straight from the nest, coming at you from historical board games, Z-Man Games, Parker Brothers, Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next round.